Okay, welcome back. Let's dive right into this continuation of our journey by looking really closely at the actual thinker behind our thoughts. Now, if you've been following along with our explainer series so far, you know we've laid down some incredibly deep groundwork about the fundamental nature of reality. But today, we're taking those massive, mind-bending cosmic concepts and bringing them right down to the most personal level imaginable. We're going to explore exactly how the universe looks back at itself through you. And more importantly, we're going to see why the you that you think you are, that identity you carry around every single day, is actually a constructed mechanism. Understanding this isn't just some abstract philosophy. It's a real game changer that fundamentally shifts how you experience your daily life, your daily stresses, and your entire path of personal growth. So, to answer this, we need to bridge the metaphysical gap we mapped out recently and zoom all the way in on the individual. It's one thing to understand that thoughts just float around in a vast, unseen metaphysical space, right? But it's an entirely different puzzle to figure out who or what is actually capturing those thoughts. Who exactly is the central character starring in your mental movie? Think of your mind like a highly tuned radio receiver. The radio waves, which are the thoughts, are floating all around you. But what is the antenna actually catching the signal? To figure that out, we have to look back at the underlying physics of our consciousness.
Which brings us to Section 1. The dual aspect recap, looking at the foundations of reality. Let's do a super quick review of the fundamental spaces that make up our universe, just to make sure we're all standing on the exact same ground.
Remember our dual aspect monist model we unpacked a few explainers ago? On one side, we have the underlying awareness field. This is based in a psychophysically neutral reality, which is what we call awareness space. Now, psychophysically neutral simply means it's the raw, fundamental stuff of the universe before it becomes either mind or matter. Because of its anisotropic nature, meaning it has a specific directional pull, almost like a massive cosmic gravity well, this field acts as a universal attractor. Then, on the other side of the equation, we have thought space, which is just a subset of mental space where all thoughts exist. So the concentration centers of this gravity-like awareness field act like incredibly powerful magnets, constantly pulling from thought space, and we call these concentration centers observers.
All right, moving right along to Section 2, Anatomy of the Ego, and how we go about building identity. Let's take the next logical step and see how these observers interact with specific types of thoughts to build our entire sense of self.
Imagine a very specific type of thought taking shape and embedding itself into your thought space. Let's say it takes the form of a definitive statement, like, I am Sid, I believe that life is interesting. Now, this isn't just a random passing piece of data like a mathematical fact, is it? It's heavily personalized. It's a thought that acts like a mirror, pointing directly back to the observer itself.
We formally call this an I position. Basically, think of it as any thought embedded in thought space that explicitly references your sense of self or your relationship to the world around you. Every single time you catch yourself thinking, I'm so tired, or I really want that job, or I believe this is right, you are actively interacting with an I position. They're absolutely the fundamental building blocks of personal identity, the atomic units of your self-image. So, how do we go from these floating, disconnected thoughts to a concrete identity? Well, it happens in a really fascinating sequence. First, the observer exists purely as a center of raw awareness. Then, through the property of mental inertia, that stickiness of the mind we explored in our previous explainers, the observer starts to form connections to certain thoughts. You can think of this exactly like the concept of attachment in Buddhism. This mental inertia acts like a really powerful glue, pulling these scattered I positions together around the observer, magnetically clustering them into one tight, cohesive construct. And boom, the ego is formed. So, the absolutely crucial takeaway here is that your ego is literally just a clustered set of these self-referential thoughts anchored firmly around the observer. That's the formal definition. It could be as simple as the name you use to introduce yourself, or an incredibly complex matrix of your personality, your political beliefs, or even your deep-seated insecurities. Your ego isn't some solid physical object inside your brain. It's a dense constellation of I positions gathered in thought space by the gravitational pull of your mental inertia. And remember, this invisible structure is exactly what dictates your daily reactions, your emotions, and your choices.
Let's move to Section 3, the ego spectrum. Here we'll look at degrees of resolution across society. Now look, everyone has an ego, and that is perfectly okay. It's just part of the human experience. But let's explore how it vastly varies across different observers.
Because of the resolution of a reference frame, which, if you recall from a past deep dive, simply means how clearly or how distortedly we view the underlying reality, the ego isn't just a simple binary toggle of good or bad.
Based on that degree of resolution, there's literally an infinite spectrum of values between a purely healthy ego and a purely unhealthy one. Every single observer out there, including you and me, sits somewhere uniquely along this vast continuum. And this brilliantly illustrates why, even though it's completely unhelpful to judge others, we really have to recognize that a significant portion of today's population currently sits on the negative end of this ego spectrum. A prime example of this, rampant materialism. That's when someone identifies entirely with external objects, their bank account or their social status. You kind of have to ask yourself, are your own I positions tied to the car you drive and the title on your resume, or are they tied to the empathy you show and the peace you cultivate? While we leave the deep psychological analysis of positive versus negative traits to your own reflection, it's incredibly vital to just simply recognize if your own ego is leaning a bit toward toxicity.
Which brings us nicely to Section 4, Dissolving the Ego. This is where we look at a deep transformation. If you've realized your ego has become a bit toxic and you have the desire to undergo a profound shift toward your true nature, the pure self, well, we have to look directly at the physics of the soul to find the solution.
The incredibly good news is that the solution, the gradual dissolution of the ego, is a process that's actually already occurring in the background of your life. It's a direct consequence of what we call Axiom 2, that awareness is non-monotonically universally increasing. Now, non-monotonically is a big word, but it just means that despite some chaotic ups and downs, backward steps, and temporary regressions, the overall grand trend of the universe is consistently moving toward greater, higher awareness. And you, as an observer, are already caught up in that incredible cosmic current.
Here's the beautifully simple equation right at the heart of this entire mechanism. The strength of your ego is strictly inversely proportional to your degree of awareness. It's a stunningly elegant mechanical relationship. If you want to awaken the dense cluster of attachments that make up a heavy, toxic ego, you simply have to increase your degree of awareness. Light pours in, and the shadows just naturally dissipate.
Finally, let's hit Section 5, the mystical experience and the mechanics of accelerated dissolution. Because if you want to accelerate this natural dissolution and reach your true self, you don't have to just wait around for cosmic trends. You can consciously and knowingly increase your awareness. As observers, we can use a variety of highly practical, time-tested methods to actively dial up our awareness. Practices like deep meditation, daily mindfulness, and dedicated yoga are purposefully designed to knowingly increase that inner clarity. Think of these practices like a high-powered flashlight. By consciously shining the beam of your awareness brighter, you illuminate the dark corners of your thought space, actively accelerating the process of dissolving those sticky, clustered I positions that make up your ego.
And these daily practices ultimately pave the way for the most dramatic accelerators, profound events that are often called mystical experiences, non-dual states, the Zen experience, or ego death. Different cultures have different names for them, of course, but mechanically, they are all just accelerated forms of ego dissolution. These states are critically important because, by temporarily clearing away the heavy, clustered I positions, they give the observer something absolutely breathtaking. For a fleeting moment, you are granted a direct, completely unobstructed sight into the true nature of reality and into the pure self, totally free from the heavy burden of identity. Which leaves us with this profound final thought as you ponder your own spiritual physics and perhaps your own daily mindfulness practices. When the mental inertia finally fades, and the heavily clustered I positions of your ego scatter back into the vastness of thought space, when all the I ams and all the I wants simply dissolve into the quiet background, who is actually looking back at the universe?